Our top story, builder-buyer agreements have been at the center of debate in the real estate industry lately. The Competition Commission of India has labelled them abusive and investigated major developers for it. And now, in a latest landmark judgment, the National Consumer Commission has come out sharply against how the penalty clause is drafted in a flat buyer agreement. The project is delayed by years. The buyer has paid 90%, and yet when he decides to forego the property out of sheer frustration, all he gets is 2 to 3 lakhs as compensation. But the Consumer Commission won't have any of it. Vasudha Sharma has the details.
70-year-old Subhash Mahajan has become the poster boy of consumer rights for home buyers. His was the first such case where the Consumer Commission dismissed the terms of the flat buyer agreement that he was bound by with his builder. Instead, over and above the entire refund of his principal, the Commission awarded him compensation at 18% interest along with litigation fees by his builder Pasavnath for not delivering the project.
Delay का quantify नहीं किया हुआ था. Delay means what? 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. There was no mention. सिर्फ ये था कि अगर 36 months के बाद delay होता है तो हम आपको 5 रुपये per square foot पर मंथ दे देंगे. तो इनके एक क्लॉज थी कि अगर आप अपनी पेमेंट डिले करते हैं तो आपसे हम 24% इंटरेस्ट चार्ज करें. फिर हमने डिसाइड किया कि हम भी वी आर विद इन आवर राइट्स टू क्लेम आवर मनी at the rate of 24% interest.
His case win in 2014 has now set a precedent and has inspired other troubled home buyers to approach the National Consumer Disputes Redressal Commission. In a similar verdict this January, the Consumer Commission reaffirmed that the flat buyer agreement was not sacrosanct if the buyer decides to let go of the property, and compensation at 5 rupees per square foot per month, which is an industry standard, was unjust and unfair. The Commission's calculation of compensation is being hailed as a victory for home buyers.
The flat was of 1855 square feet and 5 rupee per month comes up to roughly 9,200 rupees. And in turn, they charge 24% penalty from the buyers.
Taking note of the Consumer Commission stance that buyers' compensation should include the appreciated market value of the land and cost of construction, real estate developers differ. They say you can't compare it to the opportunity cost of the market because that would mean supporting speculators.
A home loan is available for say 10% or 10.5%, whereas the construction finance or the real estate funding comes at something like 16 to 20%. So as a developer, my cost of funds is not same as a consumer's cost of fund. So there exists a logic that why that differential should be there, but I agree that the differential should be fair and justifiable.
With no regulator for the housing sector and civil courts taking years to gather evidence, these Consumer Commission verdicts will have wider implications for the many projects that stand delayed in NCR.
When courts pass an order, the most important thing that hovers the mind is that this should be a deterrent. That builders should be worried about the fact that you should not stretch things so much that eventually you'll have to end up refunding money at a penal interest.
The housing sector must be governed by a standard builder-buyer agreement that operates on equitable terms and conditions. But many feel that would lead to cartelization among developers. With camera person Sanjay Kumar, Vasudha Sharma, NDTV.
With us today, Ajay Singhal, Director, Avalon Group, and Vaibhav Gaggar, Partner, Gaggar and Associates, Solicitors and Attorneys. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining in. Ajay, I'm going to come to you first. I mean, this is in many ways a landmark judgment for a consumer who has no recourse. There's no regulator. He's going around the court forever. And I think kudos to the gentleman who fought the case against Pasavnath, did not give up because it was probably his lifelong savings. We saw that he was an elderly senior citizen, Tell me, is this a big warning to developers that do not stretch things too far?
Definitely, it's a wake-up call for our industry. You know, we should get up, take notice of this, and understand, and try to, you know, implement a better and fairer policies for the customers, for sure.
Okay. All right. You're saying fairer policies, but then what is a fair policy? In this right now, the way builder-buyer agreements are stated, if the builder delays, he pays 5 rupees per square feet. If the customer delays even by a month, he pays 18% interest. So even if the cost of funding for a developer is high, that is totally not justified, is it? The huge gap which remains between these two.
Manisha, it'll take a while for me to make you understand the things, the way it works. First, I like to differentiate between the projects, the abandoned projects and the delayed projects.
Okay.
There have been several black sheep in the industry. There have been a good number of abandoned projects which no development has taken place for last few years, which have been totally no devoid of any activity at the site. They needed to be treated the way, you know, in the way they have been, you know.
All right, fair enough.
There have been some, now in the delayed projects again, there have been some minor delays of 6 months to 1 year for a project, or maybe some delays attributed to the court orders or the government policies.
Right.
That needed to be deprecated. That is the one differentiation I would like my customers to understand, my viewers to understand.
Okay, fair enough. Sameer Jasuja, you know, landmark judgments like this, abandoned projects, I believe that the real estate sector is heading into an ICU. We could have many more cases where projects are getting abandoned. Is this then the right way to go? Why wait for a project to be abandoned? If a developer has said 3 years and he's not given you the project for 5 years, should you not hit the courts?
You see, unfortunately, our legal system, is not geared up to be able to resolve issues in less than 5 to 10 years. The developer very well knows that you will run out of patience. And that is the biggest strength the developer has against the consumer. You know, we have a 3-4 level of court cases that you need to file to go from lower court to higher court to high court to Supreme Court, and it will take 10 to 15 years to get any kind of judgment that will benefit the consumer. And 9 out of 10 times the consumer just gets tired out and he gives in and tries to settle in whichever terms.
So Sameer, are you saying that the developer is not at all going to be worried about this verdict because he knows that there are very few consumers who will chase the court for years, 5 to 8 years to get their money back. So it's not a deterrent as we'd like to believe. I am a classic example.
I have spent 7 years in court against some reputed developers, and I have, after 7 years, couldn't wait anymore, and I've gone and settled on the developer's terms because it was just too unfortunate. I was told after 7 years that it could take you 5 to 10 years more.
Good Lord. Okay, Vaibhav Gagar, here we have a case of Parsavnath, abandoned project, and now the courts have awarded a very, very fair hearing to the buyer. According to me, for a consumer, it's a landmark judgment. But as our panelists have just said, that's really not a recourse out for large number of buyers who are strapped with delays or abandoned projects, because very few have the wherewithal, the financial wherewithal to actually fight out long prolonged court cases. So what's the way out?
This sets a very strong precedent, and even though it's a follow-up, Mahajan, it reiterates the point quite emphatically that people are not going to be taken for a ride irrespective of what the terms of the agreement, which we all know are lopsided completely and with no bargaining power for the consumer. In that circumstance, I think this should give a lot of hope to all the consumers who are fighting this issue out. But coming particularly to the issue that you've raised, that, can they afford to go through the entire, battle because the time constraints that are there? Well, I think things are getting expedited. There is an earnest effort that is there by the forum now to try and get a resolution in place at the earliest. And with these precedents really setting the law, and they've been challenged in the Supreme Court and have been dismissed as withdrawn, I think things are going to get a lot quicker and going to get a lot tougher for the builders if they do not resurrect their practices.
All right. Ajay, explain to me this whole scenario of having a more fair buyer-seller agreement. Has the industry, after CCI judgment and now after the Mahajan judgment, woken up to the fact that they need to have more equitable buyer-seller agreement? Because something which has been signed as close as 3 months ago is still one-sided.
one, I differ with Sameer on the court procedures. As a part of developers who are trying our best to deliver our projects on time, we find that in fact, with the due respect, the courts have become more proactive. The moment any case goes to any court for any reason, the builder is definitely, is one of the culprits. So we finding it other way around, more consumer activism, more court activism, and lot of legal notices being sent to us, and lot of legal cases being pursued. Though even though we try our best to be fair and on time.
Okay.
Now the question of fairer ABA. There has been an industry practice where down the line the ABAs have generally tended to be lopsided, but last 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years, with the courts coming in with more consumer activism, lot of developers, lot of well-meaning developers have started changing their ABAs, and you'll see a lot of difference. And with the last few court judgments coming in, CCI thing coming in, you'll see more balanced.
All right, Vaibhav, is that happening? More balanced buyer-seller agreements? I've yet to see one, but you would probably have a better grip on this.
I wish I could have agreed with my friend over there. Unfortunately, there's more smoke than fire in what he's saying. Till now, a lot of the developer lobby is still, using the same old agreements. A few tweaks here and there are happening, but I must say that it's a serious minority. And if my friend has adopted those practices for his group, that's fantastic, because I believe that there's a huge premium in place for anybody who's going to play by the rules and play fair, because all the consumers today have woken up to their rights and want to be dealt with fairly, and I believe that goodwill could carry the developer a very long way. So unfortunately, I don't think it's made enough of an impact just yet, but I think things are moving in the right direction.
Okay. Sameer, when do you consider a project abandoned? Because, I mean, there are so many stalled projects across NCR and in other cities across the country. When do you term it as a stalled project? I mean, I don't see much work happening in many of the JP townships which are under construction. When do you say it's abandoned?
Look, to our knowledge, with the real estate prices having gone up the way they've gone up over the last 4, 5, 6 years, projects that even have got abandoned will see the light of the day, because the pricing at which they've been sold at is still pretty low compared to today's
Where
market
is the
prices.
liquidity? These developers, you yourself say the developers have run out of complete liquidity to build anything. So how will they see light of the day?
Technically, when you're talking about abandoned is when you see a project where the developer has kind of run away. He's not available.
But here,
right?
Parsavnath is a listed company. Okay, Ajay,
Right.
you come in on this. When is a project considered abandoned? Because I know that there are enough number of people who are wearing t-shirts saying wish there was a town, 6 years, 7 years, nothing's been there. Now there is of course a NGT case, so the developer is saying what can I do? I can't build because there's a case, he's taking the shelter of NGT. But seriously, at what point do you say that look, this is not delays which are out of control of a developer, but these are actual delays which there is an intention issue here for the developer to deliver, and therefore it must be considered abandoned?
No, delay because of the entity is a very recent thing, to be very honest. Technically there is no fixed parameters to say when a project is no activity, no construction taking place in a project for last 6 months to 8 months or 1 year max. Nothing happening, no labor at site, no material at site.
Okay.
Will generally qualify as a abandoned project. Nothing happening.
Sir, with all due respect, more than 50% of the projects in India today are going through this kind of a challenge right now. Would you call that abandonment? I don't think that's correct. Technically speaking, when we talk about practically or technically.
Okay.
Technically speaking, a company probably can, in India you can't have a bankrupt company, right? Now the bankruptcy laws are coming in. Technically speaking, no project is abandoned.
But
practically speaking, if we talk practically, you have to have a situation where actually the developer has literally run away, and there have been cases like that.
Okay.
Right?
But
otherwise
that's a different
you can
case.
say probably 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years of no construction activity happening on the ground can be safely considered as project being abandoned.
Vaibhav, is that true? 3 to, so you're saying that first 3 years is what the developer promises, then the next 3 years he says I have problems so I can't deliver. After that, if 3 more years he does not construct, is when it's abandoned.
I would actually imagine so, because in fact, whether a project is abandoned or not, I would take it a step further. The fact of the matter is that if the project has been delayed grossly, so say by 3 years or 5 years or whatever, I think every allottee has the right to go to the forum and say, give my money back, and with this kind of interest. So the emphasis on the project abandonment per se, I don't think it's going to hold too much water. Developers can keep crying foul that they're short on liquidity or whatever, but it's a problem that they've created for themselves. And my worry really is that now there are so many frustrated and upset consumers out there. A lot of them are going to be approaching the forum to say, give our money back with this interest because there's a delay, irrespective of whether the project has been abandoned or not.
All right, fair enough. Ajay Singhal, thank you very much for coming in and giving us the developer's perspective. And I do know that the market is going to reward good developers, and there will be, developers who will be out of the market. This is the best time. A slowdown is the best time for actually, let's say, the market to clean up. And Vaibhav Gaggar, thanks very much for your legal perspective. Gentlemen, pleasure having you with us.